I know that title has a lot to unpack, but I will try to make this as clear and concise as possible. I, 23, am at the start. Worked at a company for roughly 3 years as a technical writer. For 70% of the time there, I worked under the original manager of the department who was approaching retirement age. While there, one of the illustrators, 46F, came off as a very friendly, down-to-earth individual. While in this role, she often told me that I reminded her of her son who was about the same age as me, dressed similarly, and had similar interests. Being young and new, I saw this as a comfort, having someone to instantly relate to while also being a minority of a different race. Later, the original supervisor announced that he was retiring and the position opened up. She and the senior technical writer were in the running for the position, but ultimately she won. There would then be a roughly 4-month period of training while the original supervisor was still there where she would learn the role and transition. During this time, her behavior towards me immediately changed. She started watching every single move that I made, how often I used my phone, was away from my desk, etc. This was something I had never had to deal with before because of our company culture being very laid back. Even the senior technical writer was always comfortable using his phone occasionally when he wanted, being away from his desk for work-related reasons, and there were no issues. However, when the subject was me, it was a very different story. I started getting passive-aggressive messages, got brought into conference rooms to be told my behaviors weren't acceptable, and got written warnings while the old supervisor who had no issues with me was still there. Against my beliefs, I stopped using my phone, stopped doing anything she didn't consider a good use of my time, etc., but this didn't serve to improve things at all. At the very end of that year, while still transitioning, her son died from alcohol poisoning. The same son that she said I reminded her of, her son was living under her care, and he had a known issue with alcoholism. From several conversations I heard her telling others what happened. I gathered that he was not given any help, no rehab, and no support from the family. In fact, from what I was directly told by her, the supervisor was more concerned with getting him out of the house and finding a girlfriend than dealing with his crippling alcohol addiction and very blatant depression. Not to mention that, but I have evidence that her son was very likely gay and the belief of him needing to find a girlfriend was unjustifiably pushed upon him. The reason I believe she is morally liable for his death is because we live in a Casey's law state, where it is completely legal to make someone under your care get help and rehabilitation for alcoholism, though this was not done. Obviously, I can't claim to know every detail of the situation as I did not live it, though all the information I got was directly from her, someone that did live it. However, in my mind, I think as a mother that loves her son, getting him help and working through his depression should have been her top priority, and it wasn't. The reason that this is important in my telling this story is because after her son passed, her treatment towards me only got worse, leading to me being fired for lack of productivity. Also important to note, she saw her alcoholic son as a bum that didn't do anything with his life. And after his passing, I believe she couldn't stop herself from looking at me that way too, despite me truly being nothing like him at all. Her passive-aggressive messages increased. Her pulling me into conferences to bully me about assignments that I had no control of increased. Discussing my whereabouts increased. Blaming me for things that I didn't do also increased. I understood that she had to be going through a lot, something that I could never fully understand, so I treated this all with delicacy and patience until I couldn't take any more and brought it to her attention. I came prepared with over 7 examples of her bullying and discriminatory behavior towards me, and she simply laughed. She laughed and didn't take me a shred seriously. So I typed up everything, brought receipts and every bit of evidence I could provide, and brought it to HR. And no surprise, nothing changed. Now on the topic of my productivity, I even supplied evidence that I had completed almost as many assignments as the other tech writer who hired in at the same time as me. 17 versus 14 in his favor. However, I also explained that I had a list of assignments close to completion that were waiting on factors I didn't control, such as reviews from people in other departments, and even a portion of it waiting for someone in our own department. But when I mentioned this, I was just told that it's my responsibility to make sure they do their job, including the other person in our department who didn't receive any of the same pressure for the assignment. In addition to that, I explained that the number of assignments completed doesn't paint the full picture as every assignment requires a different amount of work and one assignment doesn't always equate to the time needed for another. Furthermore, I had taken intermittent, federally job-protected FMLA leave, throughout the year because of my health complications with type 1 diabetes that was severely worsened by the stress I experienced working for her. Then, after being pulled in a conference and being bullied about taking FMLA leave, which is illegal, I was fired the next week for lack of productivity. Which is odd because 2 months before, I passed my performance review and got a raise. Also, just to mention it, both the senior tech writer left and so did the other tech writer not long after she hired in. But they did hire one other new writer shortly before I was fired. Additionally, at the time I was fired, I had 6 documents waiting for her review for completion that she hadn't even looked at yet. Now, the reason I want to make a video about this and post it on my YouTube is because I am literally a commentary/drama creator and YouTube just became my new livelihood following the loss of my primary income. I just got married, paid for a honeymoon, and then not even a month later got fired. Finances are going to be an issue soon, but I also know that I've built up my YouTube enough to make money I can live on, but it's not enough to really live. But exposing stuff like this is literally what I do, and the only difference is that it happened to me. So I'm feeling a little shaky about it. And at the same time, I really feel like she forced my hand and I have to do what I have to. I feel like my supporters deserve to know this. Every detail I've shared with you. So anyway, TLDR, my supervisor contributed to her son's death by not getting him help when he really needed it, and instead focused on other selfish things that she wanted for him. Because she made a connection between me and her son, this led to an unhealthy bias that ultimately got me fired. Am I the asshole for wanting to make a video about this for people to see?